Chapter 2, Spying. Here's a sign they see. Hanging Moss, Community Pool Rules. Open 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Everyone welcome. No one under the age of 12 is allowed in without supervision. No horseplay. See there, Frankie? Your dad doesn't know everything. It's still open. I read the sign on the fence gate for the umpteenth time. You suppose they'll ever change that rule that makes my bossy big sister in charge? Jesselyn can't swim half as good as me. Just because she's 14 and I'm only 11, what difference does that make? You know, Glory, nobody has to know how old you are. You could sneak in. Frankie looked around to see if anybody was watching us. Like me? Not hardly, since my daddy's been the preacher at First Fellowship United Church for my whole entire lifetime. Half the people in this town know how old I am. I untangled a quarter from my bathing cap and I dropped it on the sign-in table. Let's go, I said, and followed Frankie to our special place near the back fence. We sat down on the grass. I flipped my tennis shoes to the side of my towel and I looked out at the pool. 8 ladies floated on their backs in a big circle, 1 foot in the air and then another, kicking away to some Older Than the Hills song blasting from the loudspeaker. Look at that, the Esters hogging the pool again. Jesselyn said that Mrs. Simpson named them after a movie star. My brother said old lady Simpson acts like she's the boss of the community pool. Frankie put his Archie funny book down and nodded toward the swimmers. All those ladies have green hair, you know. Before he could quote from his 5th grade science book about why chlorine turns hair green, I yelled, "Last one in is a monkey's uncle," and jumped up. Frankie set his eyeglasses in his shoe for safekeeping. He took off the black and gold lanyard with a whistle hanging from it and laid it on top of his towel. Then Frankie fiddled with his swim goggles, fastened on his pink plastic nose clip. Finally, he slid into the pool, feet first. I dived into the deep end, flutter-kicked over to Jesselyn, and then climbed up a ladder. When I got out of the pool, I stood close enough to drip on her. "Hey, sis, I'm here." Jesselyn turned from her pep squad friends. "I see you. Please move. You're blocking my sun." She slathered baby oil on her arm. "You want a hot dog from the snack bar?" I asked. "I'll get you one, and French fries." Jesselyn looked at me like I had offered her liver with onions. Last summer, my sister taught me to hold my breath and swim the entire length of the pool underwater. Back then, we sat on the same big towel while she painted my toenails pink. Not this summer. This summer, Jesselyn is fed up with me. I cannonballed back in, splashing Jesselyn and her snippy friends. When I got out, I headed for my towel. "Come on, Frankie," I told him. "We got us some spying to do." Even underneath our favorite shade tree, it was so hot you couldn't hardly breathe. But then, when Jesselyn and her friends started whispering, and words like cute boy and football player and 2-piece bathing suit drifted my way, I scooted my towel out from underneath that tree to get closer. They gossiped about her friend Mary Louise's party, and they talked about how some new boy in town that Jesselyn seemed real interested in. The way those girls were studying their fancy colored toenails, you would have thought they were paintings hanging in a museum. When Frankie's brother, J.T. Smith, Mr. Football Hero, showed up, the toenail studying ended. Every single one of Jesselyn's pep squad friends started giggling and carrying on. Even with the sun beating down, JT had his varsity leather sweater hung over his shoulders. No swimming suit. I guess he was too good to go near the water. He had a toothpick hanging out of his mouth, a football under his arm, and the fiercest look on his face. Frankie jumped up and ran over to where JT was. Maybe he thought his mean brother was going to make those boys playing Marco Polo, splashing left and right under the diving board, ask him to join in. Fat chance they'd let Frankfurter Smith play, even if his brother's the Hanging Moss Hornets' biggest star. You girls better enjoy this while you can, JT nodded toward the pool, but he was grinning bigger than a cat trapping a mouse. By next week, it'll be closed. Jessalyn propped herself up on her elbow to look out at the turquoise water. Closed? In the middle of the summer? You don't know what you're talking about, JT. I know exactly what I'm talking about, was all he said. When I heard that, I couldn't stop myself. I stormed over to Jessalyn. Nobody is going to close our pool. It's almost July 4th, the big parade and all. I started to say how it was my birthday and how I'd had swimming parties there since I was little. But I didn't. I glared at Frankie's brother. Why are you lying about our pool? JT spit out his toothpick and slicked back his black hair. I ain't lying. You can blame it on them freedom workers, those people from up north, in town to help the coloreds vote and swim in our pool. We don't need outside agitators down here making up new rules. JT started to move away from us. He was ending the conversation. Jessalyn followed JT toward the gate, and I was right behind her. Her voice got so loud that 2 lifeguards looked down. Outside agitators? Do you even know what that means? You're just using big words. Before you start saying bad stuff about people, you should find out who these so-called outside agitators really are. My stomach did a belly flop. Whatever an outside agitator was, it did not sound good. I didn't understand what they were arguing about. Well, if you want to swim next to a colored person, go on ahead, JT hollered back at Jessalyn. While you're at it, why don't you just hightail it across town to swim in their crummy pool? Maybe I will, Jessalyn answered, quietly this time. But by now, the entire pep squad was listening. What are you talking about, JT? I looked up at him standing there, smiling to beat the band. You don't know a thing. That's what you think, he answered. And then he strolled out of the pool gate like he owned the place. For a minute, everything got so still, it felt like the entire Hanging Moss community pool was holding its breath, listening. After a while, it was swimming pool noises again. Mamas calling children, lifeguards' whistles, radios fighting with each other to see which one would make the most racket. Everything was back to normal, seemed like. I turned to Frankie. Is something broken? Is that what you meant when you said the pool might be closed to fix stuff? Like a crack in the cement? It must be a teensy crack, right? Or that fence over by the mimosa tree? It's been broken ever since I can remember. Daddy told us it was closing, he answered. My daddy's on the town council, you know. Yeah, well, as the preacher at First Fellowship, my daddy knows as much as any old town council. He never said anything about this pool closing in the middle of summer. I kneeled down to peer into the pool water gurgling near the drains. Bobby pins, long hair, pink chewed up bubble gum. No cracks. I was trying not to care about swimming and splashing every single day for the rest of the summer in the cool water with Frankie, my one true friend. or whether it mattered that Jesselyn might just be the laughingstock of Hanging Moss Community Pool for hollering at Frankie's brother. Listening to JT talk just now, all the fun had just drained right out of the community pool.